Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Grace of a Military Child in Life podcast. Military families are not like your traditional family. They are strong, brave, resilient, and some of the most incredible people I know. My name is Gracie, a U.S. Army brat, and I am your host. I am honored to be able to give military family members like myself a place for them to share their stories and experiences in the military life. Stay tuned for this week's guest. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Grace of a Military Child in Life. Today, I'm here with Lindsay, who is a Marine spouse. So, Lindsay, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hello. I'm so good. Thank you. And it's interesting to be introduced that way because my husband just dropped his retirement paperwork.
How exciting.
Pretty soon I'm going to be whatever you are when you're out and you're a spouse. I don't know what that's considered yet.
And it's a whole new life, too, like not having to constantly move and follow the orders and all of that.
Yeah, I feel like we're equal parts. I'm equating it right now to being seniors in high school, right? Where you are like itchy and you're like, I'm ready to go do the thing. But everyone's asking you like, well, what's the thing? And you're like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. So we have some really good things in place. I feel like we're just going to have to keep being gentle with ourselves and just taking it one step at a time with this journey. So that's where we're at, but it's crazy. I can't believe we're already here. He will be at 21 years of service in September of 2025.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. That is so incredible. Well, can you kind of, I guess, then recap the life of what it's been like and what that journey has been like for you?
Sure. Yeah, we'll be married for 16 years this coming December of 2024. So I was not we were dating at the front half of his career. But we've known each other since we were 17. So his name is Ryan, and we did know each other pre-military. We met as like high school sweethearts, but not at the same high school. We were both on a Carnival cruise ship for spring break with our families.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And he is the one that like his friend like stole my camera. Ha ha ha. I went to get my camera back. And when, someone came to answer the door, it was Ryan that answered the door. And I was like, well, this guy's very cute. And we found out that we lived 45 minutes away from each other in Ohio. And
I love Ohio. I'm like one of the crazy ones.
Those Midwesterners. I don't know if I'm moving back there, but we do love to visit.
Yes.
So we're both from there. We dated all of our senior year of high school. We made it through our first year of like my first year of college and his first year in the Marine Corps together. And then that summer we broke up and full transparency, like I was the one that ended things because I didn't really want to become a military spouse. Like that's kind of where we were headed. And I just wasn't sure if I could see myself in this life. Like I could see myself with him, but I wasn't sure if I could see myself, as a military spouse. And that's humbling to say now, right? So we went off and dated other people. And I think I also needed to know, like, was that real, what we had, as such young people dating? And I went off and lived my dream. I was studying to be a dancer and a professional dancer. And that's what I did. I was hired by several companies across the US, and I ended up going back and working for Carnival.
I was just going to say, did you do that?
It came full circle. Yes.
So everything was meant to be. That's what I'm hearing.
So yeah, like we actually got engaged right before I went on a contract with them. So
oh my gosh.
It all comes back to just the fact that, we really did love each other and what we had was real. But I'm still glad that we had that break time. Both of us say that now because I think our marriage would look different and we would look different had we not had that time apart to kind of figure out ourselves and all of those things. So anyway, from that point forward, we got married. We did the whole he proposed and 7 days later we got married, and then he goes back to Iraq, for his third tour. Yeah. And I get on a Carnival cruise ship boat and I sail around and he's in a desert. And then we meet back up in Monterey, California for him to work on his second language. He's a linguist. So all of that, I was trying to think, where did we go after California? Then we went to Korea, Hawaii. We added a daughter in Hawaii, my daughter Evelyn. And then we went to Rabat, Morocco, Quito,
Ooh.
Ecuador. Those are unusual, but Marines have the Marine Security Group program. So that's Marines are who are guarding our embassies worldwide, right? So we tagged on to that program, which was wonderful. And then after Ecuador, we went to Virginia, and now we are in Texas. So that's a lot of places. Within the 14 years we were traveling around, we moved 7 times. And 7 times across like continents. So yeah. And at one point, I think by the time we got to Virginia, we'd been overseas for almost 10 years cumulatively, like a decade's worth of time. I mean, Hawaii is the United States, but we always like lovingly call it like US light, right? Because it's a very different vibe, and you're still far as like planes and all of that to maybe get back to the mainland. But what an incredible adventure, right? When I look back on it, there's just a lot that I can see that was really good about this lifestyle that we have lived, and also really hard. And I think experience now has taught me like how to hold both of those truths and be okay with both of them.
Yeah. And I think, you look back and you've had this incredible life that may not have been easy all the time. It may have come with its hardships and its challenges. But, you've done so many incredible things, seen literally the world between, cruise ship and military. But you can kind of look back at it and, I hear it from so many people of, I don't know if I want to be a military spouse. I don't know if I can handle that life, because it's a lot. It really is, especially if you don't have experience growing up with it, or like direct family experience, maybe like an aunt or uncle, and like you can see it hands-on. It can be very daunting. And a lot of people just don't necessarily, that's not something you jump for, necessarily right off the bat. I mean, you hear the, I guess, quote unquote horror stories of people wanting it for like the insurance and the benefits and all of that, which is its own thing. But it's a hard commitment to make. But then you like you said, years later, you look and it's like, wow, like we've done so much. You've got to live overseas for a long, long time. And yeah, those are experiences that you don't necessarily get without, even the sacrifice as a family member, moving away from home, doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, being a single parent at some points, and just trying to struggle through, even going and exploring new cultures and really having to immerse yourself into that to, really adapt to it.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I've developed, or at least hung on to, like a very broad sense of curiosity and kindness everywhere we're at. I mean, now that we're getting towards the end, people are like, well, what was your favorite place? And I was like, I can't even answer that, because all of them had like really high highs and some low lows. But at the end, I was always really upset to leave all of them. And to me, I would rather feel the feels, right, and be upset about leaving a place and its people, because I invested and I gave my everything to the time that we were there. And I know that there are some posts that are harder than others. And I know that there are times that we're not ourselves. And I really had to unpack that part of my story when we moved to Morocco. I thought, because we had lived overseas in Korea and I had like been on a cruise ship and done all these other like international travel things, that I was like, I'm going to rock this, But what I hadn't anticipated is that Ryan had just been on like 2 back-to-back deployments while we were having Evelyn. I found out I was pregnant 5 days after he had already deployed. And then he came home for the birth, and then he had to leave again when she was 4 months. And I was just like, what am I doing? So I feel like I very much invested in being a mother, and I kind of forgot what it was like to be a partner and be a spouse. And I often say, like, deployments are really hard, but reintegration can be just as hard. And it's like takes your breath away, right? Because I think you can be far apart and miss each other. And I think you can be in the same house and miss each other all the same. It's a very different investment coming back together as a family to figure out what everybody's roles are again and how we make space for each other. And this time we've had apart, like in the experiences we didn't share together. So then when we moved to Morocco, I just felt like, they call it like a culture shift, culture shock is what I'm trying to say, but they call it like a U, right? You're supposed to start at the top of the U and you're going to hit a slump, and then you're going to make your way up the other side. And I feel like mine was like more like a J for like 6 months where I was like, I'm making it up and then I'd slide back down again. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is not me. I'm typically like a very like glass, half full individual that like can rally and rock it. But I'm glad I was humbled because it has given me a lot more generosity towards those that like struggle with kind of relocating or get anxiety about different things. That's definitely where I was at, was just kind of like my first brush with like really understanding what anxiety and mental health, all of those things combined, what they can look like, and how do we seek help when we feel like it's hard, right? It's hard not just to seek help, but to admit that you need help when you've kind of been like, I'm doing it all. But the truth is like, you can continue to do it all, but might not be doing any of it well. And it's really worth it to start trying to build an awareness on what does okay look like for you? And I know as spouses, that's like, well, I don't know, I'm just pulling myself up and moving on. But I think it's really good to know what your baseline is. And when it's getting to be too much, what are those warning signs for you personally to say like, this is a time where I need to talk to someone. I need, to admit that I might need some extra support in like the workouts and the eating healthy and the this and the that, like organizing my space and, ticking all these boxes that are supposed to make you feel a certain way. And if you're not there yet, I think that's a good time to be really courageous with yourself and ask for that extended help.
Yeah. And I think that really goes to show the military community, where it's hard when you move to those places that, like you were saying, Morocco, it's not a heavily populated military community there. It's rare to go there. And so you go there and, like you were saying, the back and forth on that J motion, like you don't necessarily have those people that you can rely on because there's such a small community of people there. Whereas in, you mentioned Korea or Hawaii, like there are more of a military population there. And it's hard to find that community because you can't necessarily just ask strangers in another country for help all the time because that might not be their culture. Or their traditions. And so, here it can be in the States, it can be a little easier to say, hey, like we need help with XYZ, or, going over to your neighbor's house and asking. And, when you go to these overseas locations, when you go to these non-military areas, you have to really push yourself outside of your comfort zone and try to adapt to that, but then also know when to ask for help, how to ask for help, who to ask for help, and really navigate that challenge.
Yeah. I feel really fortunate that someone there, was able to sit me down and talk through things with me. She was a counselor, she wasn't able to like do it as an official session, right? Because of like the working agreements in the country, but she was another spouse that was stationed there with me. And she was like, I think you should just come and like talk this out. And through that discussion, I feel like I was like, whoa, so many things are illuminated to me that I am not paying attention to, or I'm thinking I have the tools to get through this. And I just didn't at that point in time. So then it was about developing new tools, being patient with myself, and being gracious with myself. I won't say we, I'll speak for myself. I have really high expectations of myself. I don't think that's like an unfair statement for a lot of spouses, but like we're used to handling it a lot. And then when we can't handle it, there's like, for me, there was a lot of shame involved in that. Like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. How could whatever, right? Like things that
Yeah.
weren't helpful in a healing process. So now I'm going through all that and kind of identifying, oh, I'm having a hard time like adjusting. This is like an adjustment disorder, and I am having a hard time regulating my emotions and my behaviors because of these different these deployment we've had and these new roles I've taken on, and now the
Right.
responsibility I feel to like carry our family through this time while also trying to reintegrate my marriage in a different country that we got
Yeah.
assigned to like 28 days. We left, you find out what country you go to after they pass the program. And we had 28 days to move from Hawaii to
Wow.
Morocco during Christmas. I mean, it just was a lot. When you go back and look at it, you're like, oh my gosh, we did that. And you're like, how did we do that? I don't know. I can't really tell you like how it all came together, except that we clung to one another. And then I feel like got brave enough to say, something is still amiss with me and I need help trying to figure this out. And having full backing of my spouse for him to say, like, I love you and you're right. And let's figure this out together. So I'm really grateful for that time now because I feel like it's helped me sit with others, that are in that process too, and say, I might not be able to make it better for you, but I can be here with you. And then start helping you when you're ready, like point you towards the resources you do have. You don't have to stay there.
Yeah. And, like you said, you don't necessarily know how you make things happen. That
Yeah.
you just do what you have to do to make things happen. And I think that is just kind of, there's not one key to military life. There are
No.
so many, but I think that's one of them, a big major one of you're given a situation, you don't know how to deal with it because you're probably one of the only ones who have gone through that exact same thing. And everyone's different. So you're trying to navigate that. And I think you just have to just keep pushing forward. And that's like the resilience and the adaptability of military families to be able to take whatever situation they're given, even 28 days to move from one Oconus location to another Oconus location. And, you just make it work. And, you don't necessarily know how it happens. And it sometimes feels like magic because it unfolds itself and it does, whatever it's supposed to do, however it's supposed to do. And that's just how it happens. But I do also want to ask you too, because by the time this airs, you will have just released your book. And so I do want to
Ah,
ask you about that too.
yeah, let's talk about it. So, I mean,
Yes.
everything we're discussing today will be in said book. I have accepted the, I guess, challenge, right, of writing out our story. And the book will be called Holding On and Letting Go, A Life in Motion. And it's being published through Alvareza Publishing, which has military family books. So you've probably heard of them. There's a lot of wonderful authors in our community. They're such a supportive publisher. I was excited to have Terry Barnes was my editor because she released, I'm like looking back here on my shelf, Spouse Call. Well, you guys can't see it, but I'm sitting with all my books behind me. She released a book called Spouse Calls years and years and years ago, and she used to write a column for Stars and Stripes. And her book was the very first one I ordered as a military spouse when I was like, what am I doing in this lifestyle? And okay, is there anyone feeling like I'm feeling that this is um, the both and situation, right? Where it's wonderful, but also like extremely intense at times. And her words really moved me through that time. So for
Yeah.
that moment to come full circle, and then she got to edit my work, I was like, what an honor to join these voices of families and veterans and, spouses that are saying, here is where we were at. Here's what we did. We did our best with what we could. And the book is really about holding tension and choosing to find or digging to find life beautiful, and looking for what matters most. We had a really hard time finding a title. Like I pitched something totally different than what the title is now. And Terry is the one that was like, in every chapter, that's what you're doing. You're holding on and letting go. Because I think in this service life, our core values, we talk about those a lot. Like they do stay the same, and yet they shift a little bit over time because we change over time. And giving ourselves permission to change and allowing that to be these places and these people that we're going to meet impact our story is such a gift of this life. I mean, yeah, I have wonderful stories from it, but I also have wonderful people and wonderful places.
Yeah.
And even as we're trying to settle our life now somewhere, that's what we keep talking about as a family is the people. Like you can live in some of the most beautiful places in the world. And if you don't have community, and by community, I mean whatever community means to you, right? It doesn't have to be your base community. They're super helpful, but like it could be whatever thing, wherever you feel at home. I think that's my wish, right? For those that continue to move around is to find that place where you feel you can belong and share good memories with people together. So yeah, it's really been crazy to write through it all and greet myself, at these different stages, because it starts way back at that decision to not be with Ryan, and then takes us through what it's been like to say yes to each other and build a life from there. And anyway, it's crazy. It's crazy to be here. And even be talking about it. I never thought that this was where I would be at, right? Is like with this urgency and this hope to share our story. So that I'm hoping someone will be like I was with Terry's book and pick up this book and know, your story is important and what you're doing along the way, it matters. Every person you pour into, every yes you can say, yes confidently to when you have to step back because things have gotten intense and you need to seek help. All of those things are so valid. And no one knows what they're doing when they go into this. Even those of us that are here at the end are still going, I don't know, but I know we're taking things with us from this time that I hope will serve us for the long term. I know we'll miss it a lot.
Yeah. And, you talked earlier about reintegration, like the reintegration, quote unquote, out of military life is what I hear to be the hardest and found to be the hardest when my dad got out. It's that, holding on and letting go. And, with military life, that's what you have to do. You have to find those good memories from each place you go, each person you meet, and be able to hold on to those memories, but let it go at the same point. Because if you can't do that, then it's going to be miserable. This life is hard. It's challenging, and it's hard, challenging, and miserable anyways at times. But then you keep holding on to these things. It's like those visuals of people just carrying around these bags and just overflowing, and it's weighing them down, that every time you go, you have to drop that and you have to just kind of let that go and put it down. And they're there if you want to go back and unpack it and visit those memories and everything, and those people, those places. Like, Morocco's not going anywhere. You can go back there and hang out and visit, but you have to move on to the next place, because that's the journey of military life. You keep growing in each place. And I think too, that's what makes reintegration so hard, when you have a family on one end of the country or the world, and you have, another person at the other, and you just keep growing. So then when you come back together, there's so much growth that happens that it's kind of like you're greeting a new person. And I love kind of how your book kind of just takes you through that lifestyle and that journey that you've been on, and said, okay, like, this is what we went through. This is not going to be the roadmap for everyone, but this was what we went through. And then, people can look back at it and take something from it and understand, maybe a little bit more of military life, or find some sort of encouragement and help and support and guidance through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you allow me to read you a tiny bit of it?
Yes, I would love
That be
that.
okay? As you were
Yes.
talking, I was like pulling up a piece of it. So this is from, the foreword, and it's called No Getting Around It. And I'm going to read you a little bit and then I'll skip to the end so you guys don't have like the whole thing, because that would take us a bit longer. But here's where we jump off. As a toddler, my son became mildly obsessed with the book Going on a Bear Hunt by Michael Rosen. In the story, a family decides to go on an adventure in search of a bear, but they bump into obstacles along the way, such as a dark forest, a muddy patch, tall wavy grass, and a deep cave. Each time they approach a hurdle in their path, they repeat the lines, "We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it." On my 125th reading, but who's counting? This phrase finally sank in. While it's tempting to find a prescriptive set of steps to help us get over or under an obstacle, ultimately, we've got to go through it. And even when we've gone through our trials, we may still not understand why or what they mean without the perspective of time and heartfelt unpacking with a trusted confidant or counselor. I know, sheesh. I just made a life lesson out of a fun book for kids. But what if we arrived at the other side of this story more present, whole, and with great hope? What if we built a remarkable and meaningful life along the way? As my family both endured and enjoyed military life, we met frequent upheaval, exhausting unknown challenges, and invitations to pause and pursue growth, intense connection, and forge new dreams for ourselves. I discovered one constant we could count on was change. And while we grew in our capacity to navigate what we were called to next, each chapter asked us to stretch. Sometimes that stretching felt nourishing, like a healthy yoga session, where our bodies and minds adjusted and felt stronger afterwards. Other times, it felt like we were being stretched to a point of snapping, like the sickening pop of a twisted ankle. To make sense of it all, I often turned to the pages of my journal and used its safe space to unleash my stories in an effort to process them. I held them up to the light with my pen, uncovering a spectrum of experiences in shimmering ink. A dear mentor of mine once told me that to find the essence of her story, she had to write through it and to put words on paper in order to both craft an understanding of challenging times and to unveil the beauty that might have been there all along.
Oh my goodness. I love that.
Wow.
First off, I need you to audio narrate it and release an audio book for it.
That's on the table. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because I was like, can I read it? I might not be able to make it through some of it.
Yeah.
It makes me emotional, some of the pieces that we wrote through. But I appreciate you saying that. And I hope that those listening understand like that tension. I feel like I've heard someone say this, that I was like, well, it's too late to put this in the book. But I was telling her, like, none of us like to live in tension. Like that feeling is not good. And she was like, yeah, but Lindsay, tension is what makes a guitar string sound beautiful. And she was like, that's what, if you were walking on the tightrope, that's what's going to keep you up in the air. And I was like, oh, right. That's so
like
good.
Hits you right in the heart.
That you're like, it's the very thing that is painful about this. This moving, these deployment cycles, these being away from our family and friends, this building family and friends wherever you are. It's the exact things that are hard to leave and hard to find all over again that make this an extraordinary life.
Yeah. And that's so true, because we go through the hardest of times, whatever that might look like to you, to your family. You go through those hard times, but those hard times are what make you who you are. They're what give you the resources and guidance to get through it. But then what I love about military families is they always kind of turn it back, and they use those resources, those guidances, those stories of what they've been through, and they give it right back to those people who are going through it. And I think, those hard times, we couldn't have the good times if we don't have the hard times, because what we would know the difference. We just think it's life. It's how it is. It's fun, but we need those lows to have the highest of highs. Yeah. So to kind of wrap this all up, first off, tell us like one piece of advice you would share to another military family, another military spouse. And then also, because your book will be released by the time this airs, where they can buy it, where listeners can grab a copy, and any information you have.
Sure. Yeah, that would be great. So I guess my one piece of advice, oh goodness, it's hard to narrow that one down, isn't it? You're like, my one piece.
Like you just wrote a whole book on this.
I think I'm going to go with the first thing that pops into my mind today, and that is to be very gentle, with yourself and your family. Sometimes your spouse only knows what they know. I spent a lot of time like wishing, right, that my spouse could tell me more, that he would have some deeper understanding of, the next thing we were going to do. And, he often just knew as much as I did, right? And it was helpful when we got on the same team. And also being gentle with myself when I knew, again, that awareness factor we talked about, when we're not okay. And we know when we're not okay. What that looks like to take one baby step forward to get help, and don't stay in that place. I know it's scary to go ask for the help, but you are so deserving of it.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so many good resources out there to find help. And right. A lot of people, if they don't we all see gaps in the military community in some sort of way. And I love the people who just say, oh, this is not here. Let me go and fill that. And that's how we get this well-rounded community that we have in these resources. It all comes from more than likely military families going through the same thing.
Right. If you can't find one, reach out to a friend, get online, type things into Google. I mean, Military One Source has a hotline, I believe, already that you can just start there. I know it helps to get in touch with a counselor. I know sometimes that can be tricky to find someone that you feel you relate to. I've done a lot of my counseling sessions via telehealth, and I would also just shout that out to the masses if that continues to be as popular as it is now. That's been a big help for me because I didn't have to book childcare. I didn't have to go anywhere. I could just log in and talk with someone right here in my office.
Yeah. I love that.
And then as for where the book will be, it will be at militaryfamilybooks.com. I'm hoping I'm saying .com and it's right, guys, but I will give her a link. I'm also at elvaresa.com. That's ELVARESA.com. And yes, it will be on Amazon and all the places. I'm kindly saying, like, if you can get it from Military Family Books, it helps me as the author. Even more so than Amazon does, but I understand whichever shipping direction you need to go. And of course, if you read it, please review it and come continue the conversation with me. I'm at Lindsay.Swo, SWO on Instagram. And then I have a Substack as well. If anybody is like ye old blog reader, I love putting up blog posts still and sharing essays and poems and all of those things. And that's, I think it's lindsayswo.substack, but if you're on Substack, you'd find me by putting in Lindsay Swoboda. So thank you for letting me just share this part of our heart and our story. And we were talking before this call even started. I'm just so very excited for you and this journey you're about to go on. I feel like in May, I'll be seeing all kinds of different posts from you and like what a leap this year is going to be, and I'm just cheering you on.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for being on the podcast and sharing, so much about your life, and congratulations on your book release. That is incredible.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you for listening to Grace of a Military Child and Life podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, follow, and comment. Also, be sure to check out Instagram and Facebook at Grace of a Military Child and Life for more awesome content. For information on the podcast, Military Child Bigs and Littles, GoAMCL blog, or other resources, visit www.goamcl.org. You can also email me at Gracie That's gracie@goamcl.org with any questions or comments. To be a guest on the podcast, you can schedule it at www.goamcl.org/schedule a podcast, all one word, or contact me via social media or email. Stay tuned for the next episode where another incredible story is shared.